Hi, everyone. Tonight we will step into a world where the earth itself quivers under footsteps so vast they make rivers shiver and hills tremble. Picture a fog-soaked valley where the air smells faintly of wet stone and wild thyme, where every distant silhouette is a moving mountain and voices roll like thunder across the horizon. There is color here, too. Banners the size of clouds ripple above tents stitched from whole fields of fabric, and the glint of gold buckles as wide as your shoulders catches in the pale morning light. This is no ordinary marketplace. This is where the wandering giants of the highlands meet, trade, argue, feast, and barter in booming voices for goods so large you could sleep in them like houses. If you really enjoy what I'm doing, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to leave a comment about where you are watching the video and at what time. Trust me, it will be interesting seeing someone somewhere on this planet is just like you. Now let's dim the lights, get into bed, cover ourselves with a blanket, and relax our entire body. Don't think about anything, just focus on tonight's journey. The first thing you notice in this fog is the smell. Leather, hot tar, and the faint metallic tang of rain on steel. You keep your head down as you weave between market stalls, each one towering like the side of a barn, their roofs vanishing into mist. The ground is uneven, worn by footsteps deep enough to collect puddles you could swim in. Somewhere above, a giant haggles over a sack of barley the size of a hay bale, the coins in his palm big enough to serve you soup. You've heard rumors about this place for years, a hidden bazaar that only appears when the mist is thick enough to hide it from the mountains themselves. Today, the mist is thick indeed, clinging to your hair and seeping into your clothes, muting the world so that the giant voices sound even more unreal. You pass a stall where a vendor sells copper buckles, each the size of a wagon wheel. Another offers braided laces, each cord thicker than your wrist, dyed with patterns that seem to shift when you're not looking. No one pays you much attention. To the giants, you're just one of the small folk, scurrying about on whatever errands your strange little kind pursue. But you didn't come here to buy grain or cloth. You came here with a rolled-up note in your coat pocket, ink smudged, written in a hasty, looping script by a courier who refused to explain it. It says only, "Your hands are required. The market will know you." And now, as you step into the central square, you start to see what it meant. All around you, shoes are everywhere, not lying about, but being carried, hauled, traded. Shoes so large their soles could be used as rafts. Sandals with straps of braided skyvine. Boots stitched with panels of hammered silver. Many are worn, some badly. Split seams, cracked leather, soles peeling away like bark from an old tree. The air vibrates as a voice booms directly behind you. "Small one, here!" You turn, and the fog peels back just enough to reveal a colossal shape bending down, knees cracking like distant trees splitting in the wind. The giant's head is framed by a hood sewn from what looks like entire wolf pelts, stitched together. His one eye, only one, the other hidden beneath a scarred patch, glares at you with an intensity that prickles your skin. He holds something in one hand. At first you think it's a canoe. Then you see the straps. It's a sandal, its sole cracked nearly in half. Straps frayed into curling fibers. A dark smear along the side looks suspiciously like dried blood. "You mend?" the giant says, his breath carrying the smell of pine and smoke. You nod. Words feel dangerous here, like they might commit you to more than you intend. "Then follow. Market loud. My camp quiet." He turns without waiting for an answer, sandal swinging from his grip like a trophy. You follow. because what else can you do? The crowd parts for him, and you slip through in his shadow. You pass under a drying line where boots hang like cured meats, their heels at your eye level. Past a spice stall where baskets of cinnamon sticks are taller than you. The fog thins as you leave the main market square, replaced by the open air of the meadow beyond. Here, the giant drops to one knee and lays the sandal before you. Up close, it's worse than you thought. The soul's enchantment threads are snapped, glittering faintly like broken spider silk. The leather smells old, brittle, but there's something else under it, a faint, sharp odor like lightning struck stone. "My walking stops if this breaks," the giant says flatly. "You fix before sundown." Sundown. You glance at the mist-blurred sky. Impossible to tell the time here. "Tools?" you ask. His brow furrows. Then, with a grunt, he reaches into the pouch at his hip, big enough to fit you inside, and pulls out a bundle of cloth. He sets it down, and the bundle unfolds to reveal a scattering of tools, a hammer with a head the size of a pumpkin, a spool of golden thread thicker than rope, and a needle that would take 2 of your hands to lift. You suppress a laugh. These are giant tools, useless for you. You'll need your own. And as you reach for the smaller satchel at your side, you feel again the weight of the note in your pocket, as if it's reminding you this is just the beginning. The giant sits cross-legged, watching you as you kneel beside the sandal. The leather is dry, the weave complicated. You run your fingers over the cracked sole, feeling the give beneath your touch, the way the magic in it resists your probing like a tense muscle. This will take precision, not brute force. Somewhere deep in the fog, a horn sounds, long, low, and mournful. The giant's head lifts, his one eye narrowing. "Market shifting," he mutters. "Work fast, small one. Soon ground will not be the same." And then, without another word, he leans back, as if ready to wait all day, while the earth beneath you trembles faintly under the movement of hundreds of unseen feet. The sandal lies in front of you, like a beached ship, the cracked sole yawning slightly each time you press it. The fog swirls in lazy loops around the giant's knees. His one eye doesn't waver from you, as if the slightest hesitation will convince him you're a fraud. You pull your satchel closer, untying the leather cord that keeps it shut. Inside, nestled among oiled cloth, lie the tools of your trade, each one a little miracle in its own right. A bone-handled knife, honed so fine it could split a hair. A bristle brush made from storm gull feathers. A jar of softening balm brewed with moonlight milk, and your pride and joy, and all carved from black horn, its tip catching the light like a drop of water. You begin by cleaning. The old dirt comes away in clumps the size of your fist, the smell of years on the road rising in sharp bursts, smoke, salt, and something almost sweet, like crushed berries. The giant's eyebrow twitches. "You find story in it?" "Always," you answer, brushing away another chunk of dried mud. "Shoes tell you where they've been, if you listen." He grunts, neither amused nor dismissive. His massive hands rest on his knees, fingers tapping idly, the sound like distant drum beats. The crack runs deep, too deep to just stitch. You'll need to reinforce it from the inside, weaving the magical threads back into alignment. But before you start, something catches your eye. A faint shimmer at the very edge of the split, like dew under moonlight. You lean in. It's not moisture. It's a thread, but thinner than any you've worked with before, woven right into the leather itself. The giant notices your pause. "What is it?" "A stitch," you say slowly. "But not one of mine.
This was done by a sky weaver. His eyes tighten. Long ago, before I lost the other eye. You nod, filing that detail away. Sky weaver work is rare now. Their craft nearly vanished after the high storms, which means this sandal isn't just old, it's valuable, maybe even irreplaceable. The fog shifts, a cool breath curling against your cheek. Somewhere closer now, the horn sounds again, 2 short bursts this time. The giant tilts his head. Market moves faster than I thought. You decide you can't waste time. You slide your awl into the crack, feeling the resistance in the leather's magical weave. It's like pushing through cobwebs made of glass. The awl hums faintly, too faint for anyone else to hear, but you feel it through the handle, a vibration that runs up your arm. Then the awl speaks. "Well, this is a mess. Did the poor thing get in a fight with a thunderclap?" The giant jerks, his eye darting to you. It speaks?" You give him a quick glance. "It does that. Don't take it personally." "Personally? I sniff. If I took every bad repair personally, I'd have drowned myself in pitch decades ago." "Do you mind, Ice?" "Do I mind? Yes, I mind. Look at this crack. It's not just structural, it's been gnawed." That makes you freeze. "Gnawed?" "Uh-huh," I says, its tone almost smug. "Something small, persistent, magical, of course, and judging by the fraying at the edge, it's still in there somewhere." You lean back, looking at the giant. "Do you have pests? Leather eaters?" His eye narrows. "No, but last moon a barefoot stranger shared my fire, left before dawn. Walked strange." "Walked how?" "Light, like he didn't want the earth to feel him." A ripple of unease crawls down your spine. That's the kind of walking you've heard about in old tales, creatures that slip between places by leaving almost no trace. If one of them planted something in this sandal, it's more than just rot you're dealing with. The awl interrupts your thoughts. "If you're done standing there like a stunned sheep, I suggest you cut the lining, carefully." You work quickly, slicing through the inner seam. The leather parts reluctantly, and a dark, spongy growth spills into view, like fungus, but glistening faintly, pulsing as if with a heartbeat. The giant makes a sound deep in his chest. "That is not leather." "No, and it's not dead." The growth twitches, curling toward the fresh air. You grab your jar of moonlight milk balm and dab a bit onto its surface. The reaction is instant. It hisses, retreating into the shadows of the soul like a wounded animal. The owl's voice drops to a conspiratorial murmur. "You'll have to track it, you know. It'll try to find another shoe." Before you can reply, the horn sounds again, this time so close it vibrates the sandal under your hands. The giant rises to his feet in one fluid motion, scooping up the shoe with surprising care. "Small one," he says, his voice low, urgent. "The market is folding. We must move." "Folding?" you ask, standing quickly and slinging your satchel over your shoulder. "The stalls, the paths, they shift. Those who are not where they must be are lost." He offers a palm the size of a table. "Come." You hesitate for only a breath before stepping into his hand. The air around you changes instantly. The fog begins to roll faster, curling in deliberate patterns, as if the market itself is drawing its breath before vanishing. The giant's palm rocks beneath your boots as he lifts you high, the sandal cradled in his other hand. The fog whips past in sudden currents, curling around tent poles and the tops of stalls, erasing landmarks faster than your eyes can track them. You cling to the ridged skin of his thumb for balance as he strides, each step eating the ground in great swaying motions. Your camp, you shout over the muffled thunder of his footsteps. Where is it? North edge, he rumbles, his voice vibrating through his palm into your ribs. Past the iron tent, before the black tree. The landmarks mean nothing to you, but they seem to mean everything to him. The crowd thickens, giants rushing in every direction, their goods bundled into carts, baskets, and slings. The air smells of panic, sharper, more metallic than before. Somewhere close by, the sound of canvas ripping tears through the fog, followed by a groan like a hill collapsing. You spot it then, a tent made entirely of hammered iron sheets, riveted together like the hull of a ship. Around it, the mist spins slower, as though it respecting its edges. The giant shoulders past two others, his stride never breaking. Past the iron tent, a tree looms in the fog, its bark the color of burnt bone, leaves sparse and sharp-edged. Beneath it sits an abandoned sky wagon, its wheels long gone, its body propped on stone blocks. The wood is weathered silver, carved with swirling glyphs that glimmer faintly even in this dim light. The giant crouches low and gestures toward the wagon. This, yours now, small enough for you. You climb down from his palm, your boots crunching on gravel. The wagon's doorway is scaled to your size, though the proportions are strange, arched high and wide, as if it once housed someone a little larger than you, but much smaller than him. Inside, the air smells of old cedar and dust, layered over with the faint tang of iron from the market. It's cramped, but workable. A bench runs along one wall, perfect for laying out tools. Shelves line the opposite side, their surfaces covered with old scraps of leather and a few rusted hooks. A small square window in the back wall shows only fog, thick as wool. This will do, you say, dropping your satchel on the bench. The giant lowers the sandal inside, the sole thumping gently on the floorboards. Even here, under the shadow of the wagon's roof, you can see the faint wet gleam of the fungus where it hides in the seam. From the satchel, you pull your brushes, balm, and the blackhorn awl. The awl groans dramatically. Finally! I thought you were going to let that thing breed in there until it started charging rent. Breed, you ask, frowning. Oh yes, the awl says, his tone almost sing-song. Leather rotters lay spores, little glittery things, just small enough to slip into stitching gaps. If one's here, more will follow unless you get it out fast. You glance at the giant. I'll need quiet for this. He nods, ducking his head to peer in through the doorway. I will guard. He settles cross-legged outside, blocking half the light, his massive silhouette a shield between you and whatever chaos is rippling through the market. You roll up your sleeves and begin. First, you strip away the old broken stitching, tugging it free in long golden coils. The leather sighs under your fingers, grateful for the relief. Then you wedge the crack open just enough to peer inside. The fungus recoils from the light, curling tighter into the dark. All, you murmur, I need you steady. Darling, I am the definition of steady. You push it in slowly, tip first, using it like a probe. The vibration runs up the handle, faint but constant, until it jumps sharply, like a heartbeat under your fingers. There, the awl whispers, got it. You draw the jar of moonlight balm and smear a thin ring around the edge of the crack. The balm begins to glow faintly, a cold blue-white light that makes the fungus shudder. It darts toward the far end of the soul, only to slam against the invisible barrier the balm creates. The awl chuckles. Now we've got it cornered. With a quick twist, you scoop the growth free. It comes out reluctantly, clinging with thin tendrils, hissing in a voice too small for the giant to hear. You drop it into an empty tin and slam the lid. The metal warms instantly, the thing inside thrashing for a few seconds before going still. You exhale slowly. One problem solved. Temporary, the awl says. They never travel alone. You set the tin on the shelf and reach for fresh thread, fine as a hair, but stronger than steel, spun from storm spider silk. As you thread your needle, a strange sound reaches you from outside, a muffled, rapid tapping, like rain on canvas, but it's not raining. The giant's head turns sharply toward the sound. "Feet," he says in a low voice. "Small ones." You frown. "Small folk?" "No," he says. "Lighter." The awl hums darkly. "Your barefoot stranger, perhaps." A shadow moves in the fog beyond the wagon door, quick and deliberate, then another and another, circling. You freeze, one hand still on the needle. The giant reaches for something at his belt, but the movement is slow, too slow. One of the shapes darts close enough that you see it clearly for a heartbeat. Long-limbed, skin like pale ash, its feet wrapped in nothing but rags. Its eyes are pits of shadow, and its mouth, if it's a mouth, never moves. Then it's gone, swallowed by the fog again. "Work fast," he says. "They do not like to wait." The fog outside the wagon tightens like a fist. You can feel it, heavy and damp, pressing through the window seams and clinging to your throat. The giant's shadow looms unmoving in the doorway, but his single eye scans the mist beyond with sharp, steady sweeps. Inside, you keep your hands moving, pulling the thread taut, running the needle through the giant leather with practiced precision. The storm spider silk slides in smooth, biting into the edges of the crack with a strength that will last decades if left undisturbed. The awl mutters at you while you work. "Too shallow, you're coddling the seam, sink it deeper." You grit your teeth, sink it deeper. "Better," it says, as if you've passed a test. The tapping sound from before begins again, closer now, circling the wagon in uneven bursts. It's followed by a strange rhythmic scrape, like someone dragging the edge of a shell along wood. You glance up in time to see a pale shape smear briefly across the fogged window. The giant doesn't move. "They're testing," he says, his voice low but steady. "Counting openings. We give them none." The scrape comes again, this time at the doorframe. You push the needle through the last hole in the seam and pull it tight, sealing the crack with a final, perfect knot. The sandal sighs under your hands, the magic in its weave settling like a muscle after a cramp. "Done," you say, holding it up. The giant leans down, inspecting it with surprising delicacy for hands his size. His eye lingers on the glow of the new stitches, the crack now a seamless join. "It's strong," he says. "Good." Before you can feel too proud, the awl clears its throat. "And the fungus?" You glance at the tin on the shelf. The metal is cool now, but faint scratching comes from inside, soft, irregular. "Still alive," you say. The giant's expression darkens. "It must be burned, but not here. They would smell it." The tapping stops. The silence is worse. You can feel the absence of sound like a breath being held. Then, bang! The wagon jolts sideways, wood creaking as something massive slams into its flank. You stumble into the bench, catching yourself on the sandal. The giant's head snaps toward the source, his massive hand bracing the side of the wagon. "Out," he says, his tone leaving no room for hesitation. You grab your satchel, the awl, and the tin and scramble into his waiting palm. The moment you're clear of the doorway, he rises to his full height. Shapes flit in the fog below. Half-glimpsed limbs, rags trailing like kelp, their movements quick, bird-like. "They are not many, but they are hungry," he says. "Hungry for what?" you ask. His mouth curves, but it's not a smile. "For things that walk far." He strides away from the wagon, each step deliberate, heading toward a cluster of stakes hammered into the ground. As you draw closer, you see they're not stakes, they're boots. Old, cracked, some without soles, each nailed to the earth in a ring. "What is this?" you ask. "Ward line. They will not cross." He steps over the boots and sets you down inside the circle. The fog presses at the boundary, thickening, but the pale shapes keep their distance now, circling just beyond. One tilts its head at an unnatural angle, watching you with unblinking shadow eyes. The giant crouches, lowering the sandal beside you. "You stay. I will fetch wood for the burning." As he straightens and strides back into the fog, the awl sighs. You do realize this is going to get worse before it gets better. You kneel, opening the tin just a crack. The fungus twitches inside, as if sensing freedom. Its faint glow pulses once, twice, like a heartbeat. Somewhere beyond the ward line, the pale watchers shift in unison. One takes a step forward, its foot brushing the edge of a nailed boot. It hisses, the sound a thin, cold ribbon in the air, then retreats. The giant reappears through the mist, his arms full of wood, twigs to him, logs to you. He drops them into a pile in the center of the circle, then kneels to strike a spark with a piece of flint. The flame catches fast, licking at the edges of the wood, the smoke curling high into the damp air. "Now," he says. You set the tin in the flames. It pops once, the metal warping, and the fungus inside lets out a sound so small you almost think you imagined it, like a sigh turning to a snarl. The smell that follows is bitter, sharp, and wrong, like burning sugar and wet stone. The pale shapes shudder in unison, their rag-wrapped feet shifting. Then just as suddenly, they turn and vanish into the fog, moving in that jerking, weightless gait until the mist swallows them completely. The giant watches until the last trace of movement is gone. Only then does he lower himself to sit, the firelight throwing deep shadows across his face. "You mend well, small one, and you are not afraid of work that bites back." You shrug, but your hands are tight around your satchel strap. "It's part of the job." His one eye glints. "Good, because there is more."
The fire hisses as a damp log shifts, sending a twist of smoke into the fog. You stay inside the ward line, the nailed boots like mute sentinels all around. The giant sits across from you, the repaired sandal on his knee, turning it over in his enormous hands. "You said there is more?" you prompt, watching the way the firelight flashes off the burnished threads. He nods slowly. "Not all broken shoes are mine. There is one. Belongs to someone I will not name here. Her boots are important and dangerous." The way he says dangerous makes your skin tighten. "How?" Before he can answer, a softer sound brushes at the edge of the ward, a footfall, light enough that even the boots don't creak. You look toward it, and from the wall of fog steps a figure no taller than your chest, a giant child.
She wears a tunic the color of milkweed and no shoes at all. Her bare feet are pale, smudged with earth. She keeps her eyes lowered, but her voice, when it comes, is urgent, tumbling out in a whisper that still carries across the circle. "Please, you have to help. They're hers." The giant across the fire stiffens, the muscles in his jaw tightening. "You should not be here. It is not your place." She takes a step forward, stopping just short of the first nailed boot. "They can't walk far now. The souls are split. They keep whispering to her." That word, whispering, hooks into your mind. Shoes that whisper are unknown in the craft, but they're rare and rarely good. You glance at the older giant. "Is this true?" His eye meets yours for a long moment. "Yes," he says finally, "but it is not your work to take." The girl shakes her head sharply. "You said you wanted her to walk to the festival. She won't unless he," she nods at you, "fixes them." The older giant exhales through his nose, a sound like distant wind in the trees. "The boots belong to her mother, and her mother is not one you should meet." "Why?" He leans forward, elbows on his knees. "Because she walks farther than anyone in the valley. And the farther a giant walks, the stranger the road becomes." The girl presses her lips together as if holding back more words. Her toes curl in the dirt. You feel the tug of it, curiosity, caution, and the low, dangerous thrill of a challenge. If the boots are splitting, they'll only get worse, and if they're whispering, "They will keep her moving," the older giant finishes. His gaze is steady now, locked on yours. The girl nods quickly. "You'll come?" You glance at the fire, at the nailed boots in the dirt, at the fog that hides whatever walks beyond. Then you look back at the older giant. "If you trust me with them?" His jaw works once, twice, then he nods. "Go, but take the ward line with you. She will not wait for mending." The girl's face brightens for a moment before she turns and slips back into the fog. You shoulder your satchel, the all muttering something about poor life choices, and step to the edge of the circle. The older giant reaches down, pulling a single nailed boot from the earth. He hands it to you. It's heavy, rough with age, the sole pitted but still whole. "Carry this," he says. "It will keep some things away." You tuck it under your arm. The fire behind you hisses low as you follow the girl into the fog. The nailed boot is warm against your side, as if it remembers the foot that once wore it. The fog swallows the firelight behind you, the glow shrinking to a pinprick before vanishing entirely. The giant child moves quickly, her bare feet making no sound on the damp earth. You follow close, the ward boot heavy under your arm, your satchel strap digging into your shoulder. "Your mother's boots," you say, keeping your voice low. "How long have they been whispering?" She glances back, just enough for you to see the outline of her cheek in the mist. "Since the last red moon. She won't tell me what they say, but she walks at night now. Sometimes she doesn't come back until the sun's high." The path dips, the fog thickening, until you can barely see your own boots. A faint trickle of water reaches your ears, the sound growing sharper as you move forward. "We're near the crossing," she says. The river appears suddenly, a broad, dark ribbon cutting through the valley. The current is slow but deep, the water carrying pale flecks that swirl like falling ash. A log bridge spans it, slick with moss. On the far side, the fog churns as if restless. She steps onto the bridge without hesitation, her balance easy. You follow, testing each plank with your weight. The ward boot in your arm seems heavier here, the leather faintly warm, like it's reacting to the place. Halfway across, a sound stops you. Faint at first, then distinct. A murmur, low and sibilant,
threading through the water's gurgle. You tilt your head. The words are indistinct, but the cadence is like someone speaking just out of reach. "You hear it?" I ask. The girl nods without turning. "That's not the river." By the time you step onto the far bank, the murmur has faded, replaced by the soft thud of approaching footsteps. The fog ahead ripples, and from it emerges a towering figure. Before you see her face, you know this must be the mother. Her presence feels different, heavier, but not in the way of size. It's the way she moves, each step deliberate, the air around her bending slightly, as if the ground itself leans to meet her. Her boots are the first thing you truly notice, knee-high, black as wet stone, their soles split in jagged lines. Around the seams, a faint pale glow pulses in time with the rhythm of her steps. The girl rushes forward. "Mama!" The woman stops just inside the range of visibility. Her eyes, when they lift to you, are sharp and unreadable. "Who's this?" "A mender. He can fix them." The woman looks down at her boots, then back to you. "They don't want to be fixed." You step closer, adjusting your grip on the ward boot. Boots don't get to decide. These do, and they've walked farther than you've lived. Your gaze drops again to the pale glow seeping from the splits. It's not light, it's movement. Tiny root-like threads writhing in and out of the leather, almost too fine to see. The owl in your satchel hums faintly. "Oh, that's bad. That's not leather rot. That's a curse spine." The woman tilts her head. "You hear them, don't you? They've been telling me where to go, showing me paths I didn't know existed. Where did you get them?" She narrows. "They were given. A gift for my work." "What work?" She doesn't answer, but the girl shifts uncomfortably, her gaze fixed on the boots. The murmuring starts again, low and insistent, threading between your ribs. The words almost form in your mind rather than your ears. "Keep walking. Find the stones. Don't stop until—" You shake your head, breaking the thread. "They're leading you somewhere." Her expression doesn't change. "Yes, and you're letting them." She laughs softly. "I've seen what's at the end of a road I choose. I want to see one that chooses me." The girl steps forward, urgency in her voice. "But you're not the same, Mama. You don't sleep, you don't—" "I walk," the woman cuts in, not unkindly. "That is enough." The ward boot grows warmer against your side, a faint pulse running through the sole. The owl's hum turns sharp. "She's halfway gone already. If you don't pull those things out now, they'll walk her into the deep fog and she won't come back." You look from the boots to her face. "If I can take the curse spine out, you can still walk, but on your own path. No more whispers." Her gaze lingers on you for a long beat. Then she steps forward, the glow around the soles flaring as the threads shift restlessly. "You have one night. If you fail, I keep walking." The girl exhales in relief. You just tighten your grip on the ward boot and nod, because you're not entirely sure yet how you're going to win a fight against something that talks through shoes.
The woman turns without another word, striding toward a narrow track that disappears into the fog. You fall in beside her, the giant child trailing close behind, her eyes flicking between you and her mother's boots. The ward boot under your arm feels heavier with every step, as if reluctant to be anywhere near the pair she wears. The path climbs gradually, the earth soft underfoot, the fog curling low around your knees. Strange shapes loom on either side, grass stalks as thick as tree trunks, their blades rising high above you, swaying with a slow, whispering rustle. To the woman, they reach no higher than her calves, but to you, they're a forest. "Where does this lead?" you ask. She doesn't look down at you. "The stones. They're old, older than the valley. The boots want to take me there."
the child pipes up from behind. "It's far. We should be quick before—" She cuts herself off, her gaze darting upward into the grass canopy. A flicker of movement ripples through the blades, something darting from one shadow to another. The sound that follows is almost like laughter, but thin, sharp, and wrong. The woman stops. "They've been following me for days." "Barefoot?" "Yes." Your grip on the ward boot tightens. The awl in your satchel murmurs, "Oh, this is delightful. Fungus, curse spines, and now we've got stowaways in the grass. You should have charged triple." The laughter comes again, closer this time, followed by a thud that shakes loose a fine rain of dew from the blades above. One lands on your cheek, cold enough to sting. The woman starts walking again, longer strides now, forcing you into a near trot. The grass closes in, the path narrowing until you can feel the brush of stalks against your shoulders. The rustling grows louder, and once you catch a pale limb slipping between two stalks before vanishing again. "How many?" you ask, glancing up at her. Her jaw is set. "I've counted 4. Maybe more now." The child whispers, "They don't like the stones." The awl snorts. "Of course they don't. Stones hold still. No fun for walkers who live to chase." The ground here dips and rises, the path twisting so sharply you lose sight of what's ahead until the last second. At one bend, a blade of grass sways apart just long enough for a pale, hollow face to peer through, a glimpse of black pit eyes and a mouth stitched shut with something that glims in the fog light. You look away too quickly, heart thudding. The ward boot in your arm warms again, the pulse in its soul sinking uncomfortably with your own. "Don't stop," the woman says. "They'll keep pace, waiting for the right place to step in." The track climbs steeply now, the grass thinning until you can see the slope's crest ahead, a jagged line where the fog glows faintly with some hidden light. The woman's stride lengthens, the glow in her boots flaring brighter, their seams writhing with that pale root-like motion. You catch up to her as she reaches the crest, and the sight stops you cold. Below, the grass opens into a vast hollow, its floor a patchwork of worn stone slabs. Some are flat, some tilted, all carved with spiraling grooves that glisten with trapped mist. In the center rises a single black pillar, taller than the woman, its surface slick like wet obsidian. The murmuring in your head swells instantly. Go down, stand at the center, the path will open. The ward boot in your arms flares hot, almost burning through your coat. You drop it into the grass, shaking out your arm. The pale shapes in the grass edge closer now, their forms clearer. Long, bent bodies, feet bound in rag-wrapped knots, moving with that bird-like jerk. "They want her to stand on that stone?" you say. The woman's jaw sets in a thin line. "Yes. And you're going to do it?" She flicks her eyes to you. "If you can't free me before I step there, I will." The child clutches your coat. "Don't let her!" The pale watchers sway in the grass, silent now, their heads turning in unison toward the hollow. The air feels heavy, the fog sinking lower, pooling thick in the grooves carved into the slabs below. The awl hums low, urgent. "If she sets foot on that pillar, small one, you'll never pry those boots off her again, not with your hands, not with your life." You meet the woman's eyes, the faintest trace of challenge in them. "Then I guess I work while we move." She steps down the slope toward the hollow. You follow, pulling the awl from your satchel, the hum in its tip now sharp as a blade's edge. You take the slope carefully, your boots sliding on the dew-slick grass. The woman doesn't slow, her strides eating the distance to the stone floor. The child hurries alongside you, glancing between her mother and the pale shapes threading silently through the grass above. The closer you get, the more the air changes, heavier, almost damp in your lungs. The grooves carved into the slabs gleam faintly, holding the fog as though it's water. Every step the woman takes stirs a low vibration under your feet, as if the stone recognizes the boots she wears. The awl in your hand twitches like a living thing. "You're going to have to work fast," it mutters. "Those cursed spines aren't just dug in, they're feeding." You catch up to her at the edge of the hollow. "Stop here," you say. "I need to see the seams." She doesn't stop. "You'll see them when I'm ready." "That's not how this works." Her gaze stays locked on the central pillar. "It's exactly how this works." The ward boot you dropped earlier lies abandoned halfway up the slope. Its glow has faded, as though it's refusing to involve itself in whatever is happening here. The pale watchers circle high on the rim of the hollow, their rag-bound feet whispering against the grass. You step ahead of the woman, planting yourself between her and the nearest slab. "If you set foot on that slab, I won't be able to pull them out. The grooves are channels. Whatever's down there will pour straight into the leather." Her eyes narrow. "You think I don't know that?" The child calls from behind, "Mama, please!" But her voice breaks off into a gasp. One of the pale watchers has left the rim. It moves down the slope, too quickly for its crooked frame. The rag wraps around its feet, leaving no sound. The others follow, fanning out, their stitched mouths slack in the mist light. "They'll touch me," she says, but you can see her jaw tighten. "They will, if I get between you and that stone." The awl hums so loudly it buzzes in your bones. "Small one, if you're going to do it now. Pry the first spine before she plants herself on that slab." You glance at the boots, black leather trembling slightly with the motion inside the seams. The glow around the soles pulses harder, syncing with the murmuring in your head. "Walk forward. The path will open. Leave the little one." You grit your teeth and drop to one knee, catching the top of her left boot. She freezes but doesn't push you away. With your free hand, you press the awl's tip against the seam. The hum spikes, the leather giving a shiver that feels horribly alive. The cursed spine is there, thread-like, pale, wriggling against the awl's metal. It recoils when touched, but it doesn't loosen. You angle the awl, catch it just under the surface, and pull. A sound bursts from the leather, not a scream exactly, but something close. The writhing intensifies, the glow around the seam flaring so bright it bleeds into the fog. Every step the woman takes stirs a low vibration under your feet, as if the stone recognizes the boots she wears. The pale watchers pause, heads tilted toward you as if scenting the air. "Almost there," the awl grits out. "Don't stop." The spine comes free in a final shudder, a length of pale, root-like material twitching in your grip before dissolving into a fine mist. The glow in the left boot dims instantly, the movement inside the seam slowing to a sluggish crawl. The murmuring in your head stumbles, breaking into static before resuming, fainter now. One step, still one left. The right boot pulses sharply, the remaining spine working harder, almost dragging her foot toward the slab. The woman exhales as if she's been holding her breath for days. "Do the other one." You nod, shifting to her right boot, but the watchers choose that moment to move. They slide down the slope in unison, their limbs jerking unnaturally, rag-wrapped feet whispering on the stone. The child cries out, backing toward the edge of the hollow. You put yourself between her mother's right boot and the nearest watcher, the awl still warm in your grip. They stop just beyond reach, heads tilting again, stitched mouths twitching faintly. The one closest to you leans forward slightly, as though listening to the boots. The right boot's glow flares, brighter than before. "They want this one more," she says quietly. The awl hums like a hornet in your hand. "Then we'll make them want it less." You take the slope carefully, your boots sliding on the dew-slick grass. The woman doesn't slow, her strides eating the distance to the stone floor. The child hurries alongside you, glancing between her mother and the pale shapes threading silently through the grass above. The closer you get, the more the air changes, heavier, almost damp in your lungs. The grooves carved into the slabs gleam faintly, holding the fog as though it's water. Every step the woman takes stirs a low vibration under your feet, as if the stone recognizes the boots she wears. The awl in your hand twitches like a living thing. You're going to have to work fast, it mutters. Those cursed spines aren't just dug in, they're feeding. You catch up to her at the edge of the hollow. "Stop here," you say. "I need to see the seams." She doesn't stop. "You'll see them when I'm ready." "That's not how this works." Her gaze stays locked on the central pillar. "It's exactly how this works." The ward boot you dropped earlier lies abandoned halfway up the slope. Its glow has faded, as though it's refusing to involve itself in whatever is happening here. The pale watchers circle high on the rim of the hollow, their rag-bound feet whispering against the grass. You step ahead of the woman, planting yourself between her and the nearest slab. "If you set foot on that slab, I won't be able to pull them out. The grooves are channels. Whatever's down there will pour straight into the leather." Her eyes narrow. "You think I don't know that?" The child calls from behind, "Mama, please!" But her voice breaks off into a gasp. One of the pale watchers has left the rim. It moves down the slope, too quickly for its crooked frame. The rag wraps around its feet, leaving no sound. The others follow, fanning out, their stitched mouths slack in the mist light. "They'll touch me," she says, but you can see her jaw tighten. "They will, if I get between you and that stone." The awl hums so loudly it buzzes in your bones. "Small one, if you're going to do it now. Pry the first spine before she plants herself on that slab." You glance at the boots, black leather trembling slightly with the motion inside the seams. The glow around the soles pulses harder, sinking with the murmuring in your head. "Walk forward. The path will open. Leave the little one." You grit your teeth and drop to one knee, catching the top of her left boot. She freezes but doesn't push you away. With your free hand, you press the awl's tip against the seam. The hum spikes, the leather giving a shiver that feels horribly alive. The cursed spine is there, thread-like, pale, wriggling against the awl's metal. It recoils when touched, but it doesn't loosen. You angle the awl, catch it just under the surface, and pull. A sound bursts from the leather, not a scream exactly, but something close. The writhing intensifies, the glow around the seam flaring so bright it bleeds into the fog. Every step the woman takes stirs a low vibration under your feet, as if the stone recognizes the boots she wears. The pale watchers pause, heads tilted toward you as if scenting the air. "Almost there," the awl grits out. "Don't stop." The spine comes free in a final shudder, a length of pale, root-like material twitching in your grip before dissolving into a fine mist. The glow in the left boot dims instantly, the movement inside the seam slowing to a sluggish crawl. The murmuring in your head stumbles, breaking into static before resuming, fainter now. One step, still one left. The right boot pulses sharply, the remaining spine working harder, almost dragging her foot toward the slab. The woman exhales as if she's been holding her breath for days. "Do the other one." You nod, shifting to her right boot, but the watchers choose that moment to move. They slide down the slope in unison, their limbs jerking unnaturally, rag-wrapped feet whispering on the stone. The child cries out, backing toward the edge of the hollow. You put yourself between her mother's right boot and the nearest watcher, the awl still warm in your grip. They stop just beyond reach, heads tilting again, stitched mouths twitching faintly. The one closest to you leans forward slightly, as though listening to the boots. The right boot's glow flares, brighter than before. "They want this one more," she says quietly. The awl hums like a hornet in your hand. "Then we'll make them want it less."
The fog thins with every step you take up the slope, revealing more of the plain beyond. The grass is longer here, dark and stiff. brushing at your knees as though it's aware of you passing. The woman keeps a steady pace ahead, the child's hand locked in hers. You glance back once. The hollow is barely visible now, just a dip in the earth ringed by mist. But the black pillar still stands out, a sharp vertical mark that catches your eye no matter how you try to look away. The ward boot under your arm is warm enough that the heat seeps through your sleeve. The awl rests in your satchel, quiet for now, though you feel its presence like a coiled spring. When you reach the top of the slope, the woman finally speaks. There's a path through the high grass about half a mile from here. It leads to the place I found the boots. The child glances up at you. You'll see why they were special. I adjust my grip on the ward boot. I thought you said they were cursed. They are, the woman says. But curses don't always start as curses. The path appears just as she said it would, a narrow break in the grass, trampled flat by something large, but not quite human. Each footprint is oddly shaped, long and slightly curved, as though made by a creature with too many toes. The air here smells faintly metallic. Somewhere ahead, you hear a slow, rhythmic clanking, metal striking metal in a pattern that repeats every 10 seconds or so. The woman stops. Do you hear it? You nod. She keeps walking, her shoulders stiff. The grass grows taller on either side until it walls you in completely, swaying in a breeze you can't feel. The clanking gets louder, joined now by a soft scraping sound. When you round the next bend, you see it. A huge iron frame, half collapsed, leaning at an angle over a shallow pit. Chains dangle from it, their ends disappearing into the earth. Some of the links glow faintly, like they've been heated from within. The woman points to the base of the frame. That's where they were, hung from one of those chains, just swinging there. You kneel beside the nearest chain, brushing away the dirt where it meets the ground. The metal is cool to the touch, but the faint light inside it pulses like a heartbeat. The awl stirs in your satchel. These aren't ordinary restraints. Something big was here, bigger than a giant. You stand, scanning the pit. The soil is churned up in wide arcs, as if something had struggled hard to pull free. The woman says, I thought they were just boots left behind by whatever it was, but when I put them on, she stops herself, jaw tightening. They didn't fit, you guess. They fit perfectly, she says. The clanking sound changes then, faster, irregular. You realize it's not coming from the frame at all. It's coming from somewhere beneath the ground. The child takes a step closer to you. It's waking up. The ward boot in your arm grows hotter. The grass at the edges of the pit shivers violently, though the air is still. A low voice slides into your thoughts, smoother than the murmuring from the boots. I know those hands. I know that all. You freeze. Who are you? The one you stitched closed long before you were born. The ground under your feet trembles. The chains rattle, their faint light flaring to a harsh white. Something moves deep in the soil, pressing upward against the earth. The woman grabs the child's shoulders. We should leave, now. The voice in your head laughs, a sound like cracking ice. Leave and I'll follow. Stay and I'll speak. The awl vibrates in your satchel, its tone sharp with alarm. Don't listen, not here. The soil at the center of the pit bulges, then cracks. A massive blackened leathered toe pushes through, followed by another. The ward boot pulses so hot, you almost drop it.
The toe pushes higher, splitting the soil in jagged lines. Clods tumble down into the pit as something far larger begins forcing its way to the surface. The blackened leather glistens with wet earth, the stitching along its edges raw and frayed. The woman yanks the child back several steps, but her eyes stay fixed on the emerging form. That's not possible, she murmurs. The awl in your satchel is practically thrashing now, its voice clipped. That's no boot. It's wearing the ground like a boot. You're looking at the skin of the plane itself.
You don't have time to untangle that before the second foot bursts free. Both are massive, each toe joint bending too sharply, the nails like slabs of pale horn. A length of chain is still looped around one ankle, glowing white-hot in places, smoking where the metal touches the leather. The voice slides back into your mind, curling around your thoughts like smoke. You cut my bindings once. You can do it again. Your pulse spikes. I've never seen you before. Your all has. The chain shifts with a teeth-grinding scrape, tightening as the thing in the pit heaves upward. The earth groans and gives way, revealing a shin, a knee, then the long curve of a thigh wrapped in the same scorched leather. The air smells of wet ash and something older, like rotting parchment. The woman stumbles back further. We should run. The awl hisses. If you run, you lead it to the next town. The child's grip on your coat tightens. Don't let it out. You step closer to the pit's edge, the ward boot still clutched under your arm. Its heat is almost unbearable now, but the glow it emits has shifted from steady to a rapid, urgent flicker. The chains rattle violently. Beneath the leather, the giant skin shifts as though it's lined with cords of something alive, twisting and tightening. The awl says, if you pierce the chain where the glow is brightest, it will release all its stored heat at once. That might hold it here. The voice in your head roars, not in sound, but in pressure, the weight of it threatening to shove you backward into the grass. Don't listen to that parasite. Break the chain. Let me stand. You grip the awl. The heat from the chain is intense, making the air above it shimmer. The giant's knee bends, pushing more of its bulk into the open air. The woman shouts, "Make a choice!" You drive the awl's tip toward the brightest link. The metal shrieks under the impact, light flaring so bright it stabs your eyes. The heat bursts outward in a wave that throws dirt, grass, and ash into the air. The chain sags, the glow inside it dying instantly. A sound like an exhale rushes through the pit, not relief, not rage, but something colder. The giant freezes, its half-emerged form trembling. The ward boot on your arm goes cold. The woman stares. Did you kill it? The owl's voice is low. No, you reminded it what binds are for. The giant's head never breaches the surface. Slowly, impossibly, it sinks back into the earth, the soil folding over it in thick waves, until the pit is nothing but a churned hollow again. The chains lie limp, their glow gone. The voice in your head whispers, "You will hear me again." Then it fades, leaving a ringing silence. The child is still clutching your sleeve. Let's go before it changes its mind. The woman doesn't argue this time. She leads the way back down the path, her pace quicker now. The grass sways violently once more, but only behind you, as if something beneath the ground is pacing your retreat. You keep the awl in your hand until the iron frame is well behind you. Only then does it stop trembling.
You walk for nearly an hour before the grass thins, giving way to a slope of bare, sun-bleached soil. The air feels lighter here, less charged, though the back of your neck still prickles. The ward boot stays cold against your side, but you keep glancing at it anyway, half expecting the heat to return. The woman doesn't speak until you reach the bottom of the slope, where a weather-worn plank bridge crosses a narrow stream. We're not far from the guild route. Giants travel it in the spring for trade. She glances over her shoulder at you. You might find work there, if you still want to. The child pipes up, "They'll want to see the boots, all of them." You shift your satchel so the awl rests snug inside, silent now, but not asleep. You can feel its faint pulse against the leather. And if I do show them, they'll either pay you or ban you.
The stream chatters over smooth stones beneath the bridge, the sound almost soothing. But halfway across, you stop. A pair of enormous prints mark the bank on the far side, fresh, pressed deep enough to fill with water from the stream's splash. You crouch to examine one. It's barefoot, each toe spread wide, the nails gouging crescent marks into the earth. The awl hums in your satchel. This one's been walking without shoes for a while. The skin's rough enough to scrape stone. The woman spots it too. One of the shoeless. You should keep your distance. But you don't need to keep your distance, because the giant is already there. He steps out from behind a cluster of leaning pines, his shadow stretching across the bridge before his body clears the trees. His trousers are tattered at the knees, his hair bound back with a strip of leather that looks like it once belonged to a saddle. He peers down at you with pale, steady eyes. "Small folk, you're the one with the awl." You glance at the woman and child, but they've already taken a step back. The giant bends one knee, lowering himself until his face is only a few yards away. "I had shoes once. Whispered all the time." His lips twist. "Wouldn't shut up." "Whispered what?" you ask. "That I should take things that weren't mine." He tilts his head, studying you. "I listened for a while." The owl's voice flicks through your mind. He's the thief. The boots remember him. The giant shifts his weight, the bridge creaking under your feet. "They tell me you can mend leather so the words stop coming. Is that true?" You eye the massive, cracked skin of his soles. "Depends on the leather and the words." He laughs, a deep, rolling sound. "If you fix them, I'll tell you where the golden souls are buried." The woman inhales sharply. "Don't trust him." But the awl vibrates faintly, almost like it's interested. "Golden souls," it murmurs. The giant leans back on his haunches, waiting. The sunlight flashes on the water behind him, and for a moment you can imagine what those souls might look like, glimmering in the dust, light bending on their curves. You open your mouth to answer, but the child tugs your sleeve. "He'll lie. They always lie." The giant hears her, and his expression hardens. "I don't lie about gold." He straightens to his full height, looking down at you like a judge over a trial. "So, will you take the job, awl-bearer?" The awl is already in your palm before you realized you'd reached for it.
You don't give him an answer right away. Instead, you step off the bridge and onto the far bank, circling the giant's bare foot. The skein is cracked in long, pale fissures, and there's a faint shimmer along the outer edge, like something's been ground into it over time. The giant doesn't move, just watches you with those pale eyes. "If you're thinking of stabbing me with that awl, it won't work," he says. "Leather binds, skin resists." "I'm thinking of how a foot like this walked away from boots worth more than a valley," you reply. His mouth curls into a grin. "That's the story, isn't it? Boots of gold. I wore them for 3 days before the whispers drove me mad." The awl hums in your grip, its voice low and sly. "He left them. He didn't lose them. Ask where." But before you can speak, the sound of shouting drifts from the tree line beyond. It's deep and resonant, giant voices, and it's getting closer. The giant's grin vanishes. "Not my friends." A moment later they emerge, 3 giants, each wearing heavy boots polished to a mirror sheen, the light flashing off them like blades. Their steps shake the earth. "There he is," one bellows. The woman and child retreat further down the bank. You stay put, your eyes flicking between the barefoot giant and the newcomers. The tallest of the 3 points at you,
Small folk, that stolen property he's been wearing, did he promise you gold? The barefoot giant growls, they want the souls for themselves. In seconds, they're almost upon you, and the air between them feels charged like the moment before lightning strikes. The tallest of the three takes a deliberate step forward, driving his boot into the earth. The soul glitters, not just gold, but threaded with something alive, tiny sparks crawling over it like ants. The All's voice is urgent now. Those are the golden souls. You're still trying to calculate how to get out of the way when the barefoot giant lunges. He's fast, faster than you'd think possible for someone his size, slamming into the tallest with a shoulder that could knock down a barn wall. The impact sends both giants reeling, and the third giant shouts something in a language you don't understand before swinging a fist the size of a wagon wheel. The brawl explodes right there on the bank. Boots slam into the dirt, kicking up clouds so thick you can taste the grit in your teeth. The barefoot giant grabs at one of the golden souls, but the wearer twists away, driving his heel down hard enough to leave a molten imprint in the ground. The all but vibrates out of your hand. Get closer. You do, darting toward the clash in short, precise bursts between blows. The woman shouts for you to stop, but your attention is locked on the glint of those souls, the arcs of heat and light trailing their movements. One of the giants stumbles, boot catching on a root. The opening is small, but you dive in, sliding on your knees beneath the swinging arc of an arm to reach the soul. Your awl pierces the stitching just once. The spark running through the thread surges, then collapses inward, the light dimming. The giant roars in surprise, and you're already rolling out from under him. The barefoot giant seizes the moment. He grabs the boot and wrenches it free, sending the owner crashing backward into the stream. The other two giants freeze just long enough for him to turn, boots in hand, and sprint toward the pines. He doesn't wait for you. You watch him vanish into the trees, the gold flashing between trunks until the forest swallows him whole. The awl is still warm in your palm, thrumming like it's just tasted something it's been waiting for. The woman's voice is tight. Do you have any idea what you've just done? You look toward the pines again, heart still hammering. I think I just made a very expensive promise.
The woman doesn't speak again as you push into the pines, following the ragged gouges the barefoot giant's heels leave in the soil. The air under the canopy is cool, shadowed, heavy with the scent of resin and damp needles. Somewhere ahead, a branch cracks like a gunshot, then silence. You move faster, weaving between trunks, your boots squelching in patches of moss. The awl murmurs in your grip, low and coaxing. Close. Keep your eyes sharp. He's carrying them. Gold sings, even when hidden. The gouges deepen, then stop altogether. You slow, scanning the ground. No prints, no broken needles, just the stillness of the forest, the kind that makes your ears strain for a sound you can't name. Then a shadow passes over you. You look up. The barefoot giant is perched on a fallen trunk the size of a city bus, both golden boots clutched in one massive hand. He's breathing hard, sweat streaking the dust on his chest. Didn't think you'd follow, he says. His voice is hoarse now, almost wary. You offered a trade, you remind him. He drops to the forest floor, knees bending like a collapsing wall. Up close, you can see the rawness in his soles, splits in the skin, bruising that blooms black and violet. He notices you looking. Hurts to walk, but hurts worse to wear them. They whisper louder now. The awl clicks against your palm. Show me the stitch. The giant kneels and sets one boot down. Even without sunlight, the sole glimmers faintly.
The stitching is like nothing you've seen, thread spun from something alive, faintly twitching as if resisting your gaze. You touch it. The whisper hits immediately. Take it and run. The voice isn't the giant's. It's colder, older, soaked in hunger. The giant watches your expression change. You hear it too. Before you can reply, the ground shudders. A shadow falls across the clearing, and you hear the heavy, unsteady rhythm of giant footsteps. You turn, just as a massive figure lurches between the trees. A different giant, broader, but moving wrong. His right boot is split wide at the side, and with each step, blood spatters the ferns. He sways, catches himself on a trunk, and peers down at you through half-lidded eyes. Need repair, he says, voice slurred. Then his knee buckles, and he collapses with a crash that sends a flock of crows screaming into the sky. The barefoot giant moves instantly, shoving the golden boots behind the fallen trunk. You're already at the injured one's foot, the copper tang of blood filling your nose. The boot's leather is soft with age, worn smooth where it's rubbed against stone. The tear is jagged, but worse is the deep gash in the foot beneath, a slice along the arch that leaks steadily. The awl hums, ready. We can bind it, but you'll need thread from the storm tree. The barefoot giant narrows his eyes. You help him, they'll find us faster. You ignore him, rummaging in your satchel for a patch of softened hide. If he bleeds out, it won't matter who finds us. The injured giant tries to focus on you, but his gaze keeps sliding away. Boot was gift, he mumbles. Don't let them burn it. You slide the boot off carefully, the skin beneath hot and slick. The awl guides your hand, its point sure as you begin stitching the tear, not just in the leather, but in the flesh, the magic sealing both together. The air smells sharp, like ozone before rain, and the bleeding slows. When you finish, the giant exhales a sound like wind through a canyon. You're not Guild, he says softly. No, you admit, but I can keep a boot walking. Behind you, the barefoot giant hefts the golden soles again. Then keep me walking next.
The injured giant settles against the fallen trunk, eyes fluttering shut. His breathing evens out, heavy but steady. You can feel the pulse of the repair still working through the leather, knitting itself into the flesh beneath. The barefoot giant doesn't wait for your attention. He crouches, holding one golden boot so close you can see your own warped reflection in its curved heel. This is why I kept them, not for the gold. He turns the boot, pulling at the inner lining with a fingernail thick as your wrist. The seam gives just enough for you to see what's hidden there. A long strip of hide, thinner than parchment, stitched in so finely it's almost invisible. Faded ink curls over its surface in spirals and jagged loops. It's a map, you say. Not to gold, to a bridge, one most giants have forgotten. The owl leans its voice into your mind. Look at the thread. You do. The lining is held in place by thread unlike any you've handled before. It's silver, but it doesn't gleam. It absorbs light, drawing your gaze into it until you almost feel you could fall in. This was stitched by someone who knew exactly how to hide it, you murmur. The giant nods. And I need someone who can take it out without killing the boot or me. You're about to kneel beside it when the injured giant stirs. His eyes open, clearer now, and he looks directly at the barefoot one. That bridge, it's guarded. The barefoot giant shrugs. So is everything worth crossing. The injured one turns to you.
If you go, take a storm rope. The wind there will tear your skin off otherwise. His hand, huge and heavy, fumbles at a pouch tied to his belt. He pulls out a coil of rope no thicker than your thumb, but humming faintly, like it's alive. He drops it into your satchel without waiting for thanks. The forest quiets again. Even the crows have moved on. You set the golden boot on your lap and run your fingers along the seam. The thread resists at first, like a muscle clenching under your touch. You slide the owl's point beneath it, feeling the faintest give. The moment the tip breaks through, the air changes, cooler, sharper, like opening a door to the night. The barefoot giant leans in, careful. One stitch, then another, each loosening the lining until it peels back, revealing the hide map in full. You lift it free. The ink shifts in the light, lines rearranging themselves into a topography you've never seen. Mountains drawn like teeth, a river curling like a spine, and at the far edge, a bridge made of nothing but arcs and dangling shapes. The barefoot giant's jaw tightens. That's it, the bridge of dangling sandals. You roll the map carefully and tuck it into your satchel, between the storm rope and your patch leathers. Why do you need to cross? He doesn't answer right away. His gaze drifts to the injured giant, who's drifting back into sleep. Because what's on the other side is mine, and I'm not the only one looking for it. The owl chuckles in your palm. Then we'd better not waste daylight. You stand, the golden boot still warm from your handling. The barefoot giant slings the other boot over his shoulder, and the two of you begin moving north, the forest swallowing your footsteps. Behind you, the injured giant mutters something in his sleep. You can't catch the words, but the tone is enough to quicken your pace.
The forest thins until you can see the sky, an ugly, restless gray with wind already clawing at the treetops. The barefoot giant walks ahead, golden boots slung over his back, the map's route replaying in his mind so visibly you can almost see the turn of each landmark in his stride. The owl, still warm in your palm, hums a low warning. Wind's picking up sooner than it should. By the time you break from the last of the pines, the ground drops away without ceremony into a gorge that makes your stomach dip. The far side is a hazy smear of rock and distant greenery. Between here and there hangs the so-called bridge, a tangled span of sandals, boots, and scraps of leather the size of barges, all strung together by chains and vines that sway with every gust. The smell hits you, old leather, rain rot, and something sharp, like metal struck in cold air. The barefoot giant plants one foot on the first slab of sandal. It swings slightly under his weight, the creak echoing into the gorge. "You small folk ever get vertigo?" he asks without looking back. You glance down through the gaps in the leather at the river below, a silver thread whipping itself into froth. "Only when I think about falling," the owl mutters. "Don't think then. Walk." You follow, gripping the storm rope coil in one hand. The wind shoves at your side, and the whole bridge answers with a groan that sounds disturbingly like a voice. The barefoot giant grips a chain overhead, pulling himself forward sandal to sandal, boots swinging on his back like a pendulum. Halfway across, the gusts turn savage. One scrap of leather tilts nearly vertical, forcing you to flatten yourself against it, while the storm tries to peel you free. Your fingertips ache from clinging. "That's why you tie in," the barefoot giant bellows. You sling the storm rope around a chain, its faint hum meeting the howl of the wind.
The moment it tightens, the rope grows heavier, anchoring you as though it sunk a hook into the air itself. When you push forward again, you notice movement below, a shadow pacing the riverbank. At first you think it's a trick of light, but then it steps into the open, another giant, hood drawn low, watching the two of you with the stillness of a predator. The barefoot giant sees him too. That's one of them. The hooded figure raises a hand, not in greeting, but in something closer to a warning, and then turns, vanishing into a cut in the cliff side. "Keep moving," the barefoot giant growls. The sandals ahead are older here, cracked and pitted, some only held together by rusted links. You step where he steps, testing each piece before putting your full weight on it. The wind drops for a moment, the silence sudden and unnatural. That's when the sandal beneath your foot jerks. Not from the wind, something pulls it downward. You throw yourself forward onto the next one, just as the slab behind you rips free, tumbling end over end into the gorge. You and the barefoot giant stare at the gap it leaves. He doesn't speak, just grabs your arm and yanks you onward until the sandals are newer again, their surfaces slick with rain but solid underfoot. At last, the far side rises up to meet you, a cliff face scarred with rope ladders and iron pegs. The barefoot giant holds himself up without trouble, then leans down, offering you a hand big enough to cover your head. You take it, letting him lift you onto solid rock. He doesn't let go right away. "If something tried to pull you off, it means they know you've got the map." The owl gives a sharp, satisfied click. "Good. Let them come."
The wind fades to a restless whisper as you and the barefoot giant crest the cliff. Before you, a plain of dark grass ripples under a heavy sky, leading to a rise crowned with a cluster of carved stone towers. Even from here, you can see the banners snapping in the breeze, deep blue, embroidered with a jagged silver crown. "The Storm King's court," the barefoot giant says, his voice unreadable. "You're about to meet the man who owns half the sky." The awl snorts in your palm, and apparently doesn't own a decent pair of boots. At the gates, 2 sentries with shoulders like siege towers stop you. Their armor is stitched from thick hide, reinforced with bronze, and both have spears taller than most trees you've seen. One squints down at you. "Small folk?" "Bootsmith," the barefoot giant replies before you can. "Here for the royal commission." The guards exchange a look, then gesture you through. The courtyard inside is vast enough for a full parade of giants. It smells of rain and oil, and the stone beneath your feet hums faintly with the vibration of distant thunder. Inside the main hall, the Storm King sits on a throne of weathered oak, bound with strips of storm cloud. Yes, actual storm cloud, drifting lazily around the arms of the chair. His hair is long and white, his beard plaited with tiny silver charms that chime when he moves. At his feet, resting on a dais, are the boots. They're massive, each as tall as you are, their leather dulled by years of wind and rain. The seams are splitting, the heels worn to angles sharp enough to cut. Even from across the hall, you can smell the salt of 100 storms ground into them. "You're the one?" the Storm King asks, voice rolling through the hall like distant thunder. "I am," you say, though it comes out smaller than you'd like. He leans forward, eyes pale as cloudlight. "These boots will lead the first step of the festival march. They must not falter. If they do, the march stops, the omens sour, and my enemies will call me a king who cannot walk." You step closer, running a hand over the leather.
It's tougher than any hide you've worked on, but brittle in places, like bark ready to split. The awl clicks in your grip. We'll need sky oil, lightning thread, and time. A lot of time. The king nods once to an attendant who scurries away. You have 3 nights, no more. 3 nights? For boots this size with this much damage, even a team of small folk would barely make a dent. But you've done impossible repairs before, just never with a crown watching your every move. The barefoot giant shifts beside you. I'll help, not with the stitching, don't look at me like that, but with anything that keeps you on schedule. The king rises. His sheer height casts the hall in shadow. You will work in the royal workshop. Everything you require will be provided. Fail me, and you will not leave these walls. The storm outside answers his tone with a deep rumble. When the attendants lead you to the workshop, you find it already stocked with barrels of oil, skeins of lightning thread sparking faintly in their spools, and a fire pit big enough to roast a whale. The boots are wheeled in on a cart that groans under their weight. You roll up your sleeves, set the awl in your palm, and whisper, "We've got 3 nights. Let's make them count." The awl chuckles darkly. "Oh, we'll count them. We just might not like what we find."
The royal workshop has no windows, only high vents that let in a ribbon of cloud light and the scent of ozone. The boots loom on the central table, each one balanced on its heel like a monument. Barrels of sky oil gleam in the firelight, their surface shifting as if stirred by unseen wind. You start with the left boot, easing a finger under the split seam. The leather peels reluctantly, like old bark, and reveals a layer of woven cloud thread beneath, frayed, knotted, and stiff from years of damp. The barefoot giant crouches beside you, a bucket of lightning thread balanced in his huge hands. "Careful," he says, "this stuff will bite if you tug it wrong." The owl grumbles, "I like it already." You begin the painstaking work, unpicking the cloud thread without tearing the leather, oiling the inner lining, stitching fresh lightning thread along the old path. Sparks dance up your forearms as you pull the thread taut. It hums faintly, a note so low you feel it more than hear it. The first night passes in a blur of stitch, oil, and hammer. The barefoot giant tends the fire, heats the nails until they glow pale blue, and drives them home with the gentleness of a clockmaker. By dawn, the left boot stands whole again, its surface dark and supple, the seam running like a scar healed clean. But the right boot, something about it feels wrong. You notice it as soon as you set the owl against the seam. The leather is warm, not from the fire, but as if it's holding a fever. The owl mutters, "This boot's been tampered with." You lean in, spotting a faint shimmer in the stitching. Someone has replaced sections of lightning thread with something else, silvery, brittle, and smelling faintly of burnt sugar. You're halfway through pulling it free when a sound cuts through the workshop, a metallic tap, slow and deliberate. You freeze. The barefoot giant straightens, head swiveling toward the shadows at the far end of the room. "Who's there?" The tap comes again, closer this time. You catch a flicker of movement just at the edge of the firelight, a shape low to the ground, cloaked in scraps of leather and bronze. Before you can speak, the figure darts forward, snatching something from the workbench. The bucket of lightning thread tips, spilling a shimmering coil across the floor. The barefoot giant lunges, but the intruder is fast, weaving between his legs and vanishing toward the far door. You hear the heavy latch slam on the other side. In the chaos, you check the bench. The saboteur didn't just spill the lightning thread, they took half a spool of it, enough to weaken a seam if they replaced it with the brittle silver. The barefoot giant swears under his breath.
They'll ruin the boots before the march even starts. The owl clicks sharply. Then you'd better finish them before they get the chance. You work faster now, stripping the silver thread from the right boot and replacing it with the true lightning coil. Each stitch fights you, the thread sparking more violently the deeper you go, but you push through until the seam lies smooth and clean. By the time you finish, the second night is nearly gone. As you set the boots side by side, both whole and gleaming, a sharp gust from the vents blows across your neck. For a moment you think it's just wind, until you hear it. A whisper. Not from the owl, not from the barefoot giant, from the boots themselves. "Not ready," the left one says, in a voice like distant thunder.
The whisper leaves the air brittle, like lightning about to strike. You and the barefoot giant both stare at the boots, though only you seem to have heard the words. You step closer. The leather glistens in the firelight, every seam flawless, every sole freshly nailed. Yet the hum of the lightning thread feels off. The awl tilts in your grip. They're right. They're not ready. You run your fingers over the left boot's tongue. The hum stutters, then steadies. "What's missing?" you whisper. From somewhere deep in the soul, a rumble replies, "The march will break them, unless you bind the sky." The barefoot giant frowns. "You're talking to them." You ignore him, thinking fast. Bind the sky could only mean one thing: storm binding. Not a cobbler's skill, but a craft from the days when giants laced their boots with captured wind, so each step was lighter than air. That art is nearly forgotten now, outlawed by guilds for being too dangerous. Still, without it, the march might fail. By midday, the festival's opening drums shake the courtyard outside the workshop. You have hours, maybe less, before the Storm King calls for his boots. You set the barefoot giant to grinding powdered cloudstone, while you climb the ladder to the upper shelves of the workshop, where a dusty chest sits wrapped in chains. The awl makes short work of the lock. Inside lies a narrow box of storm-binding nails, slender spikes that shimmer between silver and sky blue. They're cold in your hand, and each one hums faintly, tuned to a different note. With the barefoot giant bracing the boots, you drive the nails through the soles in a precise spiral, chanting the old binding rhyme under your breath. At each line, the workshop darkens, as though a shadow is leaning over the vents. The air smells of rain. The last nail sinks in with a sharp ringing tone, and a gust of wind bursts from the boots, swirling dust and firelight in every direction. The leather flexes, seams tightening as though the boots are breathing in. You have hardly time to admire your work before the workshop doors fly open. The Storm King himself strides in, a dozen guards at his heels. He surveys the boots, his eyes narrowing. "Done?" "They'll hold," you say, though you don't mention the whispers. He signals to two attendants who hoist the boots onto a litter. The Storm King steps into them without ceremony, fastening the straps with surprising speed for someone his size. The moment his feet touch the ground, the storm binding takes hold. Lightning arcs from nail to nail, and his first step cracks the stone floor like ice. The courtyard erupts in cheers. Outside the walls, the parade begins to move. Hundreds of giants in armor, robes, and bright banners, their footsteps like distant drums. The Storm King leads them, each stride a clap of thunder. You walk just behind the barefoot giant, the crowd's roar washing over you. All around, the giant's repaired shoes, some yours, some older, gleam in the sunlight, but none match the Storm King's.
Halfway down the main avenue, he glances back at you. "Small folk," he calls, voice booming over the march. "You've bought my people another 100 storms." The owl, muffled in your satchel, mutters, "Let's hope that's all you bought them." Because, from deep within the boots, under the cheers and drums, you hear that whisper again. "Not yet done."
The words slide under the noise like a shadow beneath water, felt more than heard, yet unmistakable. You keep your pace, matching the swing of the barefoot giant's strides, but your mind hooks on those 3 syllables. Not yet done. The Storm King leads the parade through the wide marble avenue, banners snapping overhead in wind that smells of ozone and salt. Thousands of small folk crowd the lower terraces, their cheers shaking the stone. You try to tell yourself the whisper is nothing, just a quirk of the storm binding, but the boot's hum seems to grow sharper with each step. You catch it again between drum beats. Gorge, gorge, gorge. Your gaze flicks ahead, past the gleam of armor and fluttering flags, to the horizon. There it is, the gorge beyond the city gates, spanned by the wide bridge of winds. You've crossed it once before, but never with this many giants. The barefoot giant leans toward you as the parade slows. "That bridge can't take the weight," he murmurs. "It was never meant for a full march." The Storm King plants one boot squarely on the bridge's first span. The leather gleams, the lightning nails sing. The bridge hums back, the vibration traveling up your legs. "Not yet done," the boots insist. And now you understand. They're not warning you. They're warning him. You push through the press of guards until you're at his heel. "Your Majesty, the boots!" But the wind drowns your voice. The Storm King lifts his other foot, and with the next step the storm binding surges, sending a visible ripple through the bridge's cables. Somewhere, deep in the structure, something snaps. The barefoot giant grabs you, pulling you back just as the first section of the bridge drops away, swallowed by the gorge below. Gasps ripple through the crowd. The parade halts. The Storm King stands balanced on the edge, both boots sparking wildly, the storm binding holding him upright where stone has failed. Slowly, deliberately, he turns back to you. "You knew," he says, not accusing, but certain. "I heard them," I reply, pointing to the boots. "They told me." He studies you for a long moment, then nods. "Then you finish it." Under the gaze of every giant in the parade, you kneel at his feet, unlace the boots, and drive 3 more nails into each sole, the final binding, the one you've only ever read about. The nails sing higher now, their pitch cutting through wind and drum and panic. When he steps forward again, the boots don't just carry him. They carry the whole span, knitting the bridge together in a trembling arc of light. One by one, the other giants follow, their footsteps sure on the storm-bound path. Hours later, when the march ends and the festival fires burn in the valley below, the Storm King hands you the boots. "They'll speak again, but not to me," he says. You nod, running a hand along the smooth leather. They hum under your palm, warm and alive. And you know this isn't an ending, just the last pair for now. The fires in the valley have burned low, their glow turning the hillsides to embers. Somewhere far above, banners ripple softly in the night wind, but here, in the quiet, the boots rest in your lap. They are cool now, the lightning nails sleeping, the seams lying still. You sit on a flat stone just outside the empty workshop, the barefoot giant snoring nearby, his head pillowed on a coil of rope. The awl rests beside you, silent for once, its handle catching the faintest trace of starlight. You can still feel the weight of the Storm King's gaze when he placed the boots in your hands, less a gift than a trust. Somewhere, storms wait to be walked into. Somewhere, bridges will fail again, and a voice from the soul will tell you what must be done. But not tonight. Tonight, the only sound is the whisper of wind through the high vents, a sound that's almost the same as the whisper you first heard. You close your eyes. The leather smell is warm and rich, the hum no more than a slow heartbeat against your palms. You imagine them in a dark chest, safe until they're cold on again. For now, there are no giants marching, no drums in the distance, no sparks dancing over your skin, only the quiet weight of work well done, and the strange, steady comfort of knowing the boots are listening too.